What's good, everybody? It's Batman, and we're over here going to be checking out another incredible YouTuber that I am actually a big fan of, and I also am subscribed to. I will make sure to put his channel link in the description down below, so make sure to check him out as well. He has incredible content of anime, Naruto, you name it. And it's really, really good stuff, you know, and I really enjoy it. I really like it, and I feel like you guys would too, especially if you're fans of the certain animes that he does cover. He does, in my opinion, I feel like he does cover a lot more of Naruto, or at least focus it a lot more, but he does cover other things too, so don't worry about that. But we're going to be checking out one of his videos called ITACHI vs Nagato, similar what his takes are, what his arguments, what his thought process is, and at the end of the video, I will give my response and opinion, or who I feel like who would actually take it. And obviously I'll respond and react to anything he says that you know what I mean, whether if I agree or not, but you know, we'll get into it. It's going to be a good video, 9 minutes long. We're going to try to keep this between at least 20 30 minutes long if it does get to that point. And other than that, let's watch it. And here we go. And I'm going to turn some volume off. I forgot to. There we go.
Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the topic of Itachi versus Nagato. Now, today I'm joined with my good friend, Gritty, who also helps me edit a lot of my videos. So definitely be sure to go check him out before you even start the video.
Hello everyone, it is great being here with my boy. We wanted to do this for a while now, but life had to strike. Exams, illnesses, surgeries we're not very proud of.
Now, due to time discrepancies, we're each going to be talking about different sets of fights between these two tanks, and hopefully we can kind of settle some of the debates between these two in the community. But first of all, definitely be sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump straight into it.
Okay, wait, before we get deep into this, I know somebody will call us out for not talking about the biggest elephant in the room, the Izanami. Look, I don't personally know Kishimoto. My boy here doesn't have him on speed dial. There is a lot us as fans don't know. Would Izanami affect all of the paths of pain? Would it reach Nagato? Can it work on good guy Nagato after he got talk no jutsu'd like there's no tomorrow? We cannot answer these questions, so we're just gonna pretend it doesn't exist.
Fair.
First of all, we're going to be talking...
Fair. That's fair. So, one thing I will say is, if it's evil Nagato, okay? So, like, let's say, like, he's healthy, right? You know what I mean? Like, so, like, friend, like, Edo Nagato that appeared in the war arc, let's say it's alive Nagato, and he's still bad, has the same, you know, whatever, this and that, and he never, like, did that fucking, you know, ten-tail husk statue, soul-eating dragon jutsu, to where he got all those fucking spikes inside of his body, and then basically became, like, a fucking, you know, on his deathbed in a hospital bed, you know, and crippled. So let's say that never happened, and he never had to resort to using the Path of Pains, or better yet, you know, like, who knows, maybe he still would have used Path of Pains while healthy, which, in my opinion, would be very intelligent and smart to do, instead of putting your real body out there. But anyways, you know, but let's say it's that version, just him, then I feel like, yeah, Izanami would more than likely work if we at least put it as, you know, as a win con or in the fight. Because, you know, the way Izanami works is, you know, it basically forces you to accept yourself and become a good person, ultimately. You know what I mean? To, you know, when it comes to, like, your self-hatred or your self-conflicts and so on and so forth, etc. Kabuto is a perfect example. You guys kind of know, you know, the dealio with him and why it was so effective on him, and overall when he basically broke out of it, because literally it's stated by Itachi, the only way you can break out of it is you literally, like, accept yourself and etc. I'm not really going to go too deep into it. And he did, and he went to the battlefield and was a good guy now, and he literally saved Sasuke's life, and Sasuke would have died if it wasn't for Kabuto. So, with all that being said, you know, that's all saying that, but everything they basically just stated is pretty fucking straightforward. So, and it's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Talking about Itachi versus Nagato as majority of the franchise until the point of his death. You know, we've been kind of watching a weakened Itachi perform some of these amazing feats, right? So let's talk for a second about how Itachi's weakened, right? First of all, he's suffering from near blindness, as by the time he fought Sasuke, he was, you know, nearly exhausted of all of his Mangekyo abilities. On top of the fact that he was also physically coughing up blood and had acute exhaustion, so prolonged altercations were very difficult for him at the time. Nagato, on the other hand, initially utilized the Paths of Pain for most of his appearances, because in the fight against Hanzo, he accidentally summoned the Geto statue and got these chakra rods stabbed into his back and caused him to be very skinny, sick, and virtually immobile, on top of the fact that his legs were also burned as well. For the sake of this fight, let's assume that mobility in the rods won't be too much of an issue. So because we're not including the passive pain in this altercation, he would have to use physical combat, so if he couldn't fight, obviously he would lose. And Edo Nagato gives us a pretty good indication on how this fight may go, as they've met before. But in this scenario, Itachi has very limited chakra, is much slower, prone to exhaustion, and can't really use his Mangekyo abilities too much. The Rinnegan is also very draining on chakra, but keep in mind Nagato is an Uzumaki, and he has very, very large chakra reserve, so this is not too much of an issue for him in particular. Now, the way that this fight shapes out to be leads me to believe that Nagato won't really have too much of an issue with Itachi here. Being able to use all the abilities of the passive pain essentially simultaneously would make it very easy for Nagato to, close or widen the distance between them, with his attractive or repulsive forces using Shinra Tensei, and on top of all of his summons, etc. Itachi's best bet in this fight would be to use Tsukuyomi or the Totsuka Blade, which was used to beat Edo and Nagato initially. Although Itachi is much weaker in this scenario, those are his two get-out-of-jail-free cards, almost. As far as the Totsuka Blade is concerned, it's highly probable that Nagato would be fast enough to avoid it, as even KCM Naruto and B weren't doing so great in their Edo altercation, and we know that Edo physically nerfs people, but does give him unlimited chakra. And it's also worthy to keep in mind that they did not have killer intent towards him. But the fact still stands. The infinite Tsukuyomi may also be countered by Nagato if he uses summons with shared vision. Itachi probably wouldn't be able to use Tsukuyomi on multiple beings.
So that I actually disagree with. So everything so far he's stating, it's fine and it's correct. So the problem with Tsukuyomi. So he did state that if Itachi does use Tsukuyomi or the Totsuka Blade, it's basically a GG. Correct, absolutely. What's it called? But with the problem with Tsukuyomi, to where now he's saying that, he could probably just be able to break out of it, whatever, yada yada, is I don't actually necessarily agree with that. And the reason why, the issue of why Tsukuyomi is such a dangerous genjutsu is not because of the potency of the genjutsu, of how powerful it is, but it's mainly due to the fact that it literally alters space and time and itself. Like, he's basically God. He brings you into a fake reality and can control all those variables to where literally he could torture you for 1 billion years, and in the real world this is all happening in a fucking picosecond. That's the problem with Tsukuyomi. So I actually don't agree with that. The difference between Tsukuyomi and, for instance, like Jiraiya's Sage Genjutsu, which is also very powerful in poetry, and in comparison, if you want to say Jiraiya is strong or whatever, cool, that's fine. But the difference is Jiraiya can't alter the perception of time and space itself, okay? He can cast a Genjutsu, okay, and whatnot, and it can at least still be fought against or canceled if you are powerful enough to do so, or have something to counter the Genjutsu. Like support, backup, or whatever the case may be, or maybe even the toads, whatever, okay? But with Tsukuyomi, it happens so fast that there's no way to defend yourself, there's no way to know, and the damage is done. The moment you're basically cast into it, it's done, it's over with. So, with that being said, I don't actually necessarily agree with that. If Nagato does get cast into that, that's basically a GG, and all he has to do is cut his fucking head off, or Totsuka Blade him, or a Mataratsu, and he turns to dust, and that's it. So, I wouldn't go that far. Would not really go that far.
At once.
What, it's hot or something?
No.
What you doing?
Going outside.
You alright?
I mean, he can barely do it on one person at a time. Also, Itachi could use Amaterasu on some of the summons, as shown in the anime during their Edo altercation. But once again, being nerfed by near blindness and sickness, he wouldn't have the luxury of taking advantage of all these techniques simultaneously without having the drawbacks. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that after maybe 1 or 2 uses of the Mangekyo Sharingan, he's going to be pretty burnt out and exhausted, and ultimately Nagato's going to take the dub here.
Alright, so up next we have Itachi versus Pain. This one is kinda complicated. Not. So Itachi's gonna kick off this fight with Tsukuyomi. Here's the problem. Knowing how Tsukuyomi functions, it wouldn't work on the Pains because they're machines. Itachi would just drain himself and damage his eyes even more. Amaterasu can get countered by the Diva Path, as we've seen in the War Arc, and the Preta Path can even absorb it. All Itachi's left with now is his Susanoo, which will not last for too long, and I assure you that the Pains aren't just gonna sit back with their pants down, waiting for the Totsuka blade to stab them. They'll be spamming rockets, summonings, Shinra Tensei left and right, Shibaku Tensei, which is something Itachi cannot escape on his own, without using Izanagi that is, which would blind one of his eyes. I'm not saying Sharingan Boy can't win this, it's just really hard to see it happen. His ability...
So far everything he's stating is correct. So basically, Pain can literally just counter anything Itachi throws at him. It's really not fucking fair. And if we're using sick Itachi, not only is he limited on stamina, on chakra reserves, etc., the whole 9 yards, he literally has to make it worth it. If he's going to do one of his big boy abilities or try to pull a W condition, you know what I mean, very instantly and fast, which is in character, okay, he's going to have to do it perfectly and wisely and really not fuck up. But the problem is the opponent that he has, which is Pain, which are literally dead corpses controlled by chakra rod receivers, okay? And they're very powerful, each one of them of their own. And they all have insane hacks abilities, linked vision, so on and so forth, and can see chakra as well. Itachi basically just gets fucked. It's literally the same exact situation of when Kasame went against Guy. Guy was the perfect counter for Kasame. So therefore, overall, everything he stated is basically really straightforward and simple. It's really not that complicated. You know what I mean? When you first think of the subject of, like, you know, sick Itachi versus the passive Pains, you know, whatever, you know, like, oh yeah, man, that'd probably be really interesting, right? It really isn't. It really fucking isn't. Pain can literally counter everything he throws at him. And overall, he has way more chakra and stamina. And overall, even if you grant Itachi to win that somehow, and he pulls off the W, Itachi is going to be completely fatigued, you know, tired, drained, probably all complete loss of his vision. And all Nagato has to do is send Konan or someone else, you know, whatever, to finish him off. And it's that fucking simple. You know what I mean? Or better yet, now Itachi doesn't even have the Mingekyo Sharingan. And literally all Nagato has to do is get other fucking bodies, put the rods in them, and he has to pass the Pains all over again. And then if they pull up on him for the second time, he's fucked. There's nothing he can do. So overall, therefore, it's not in Itachi's favor. It's just not. He ultimately just, there's no way it's going to happen. Now, if we're talking about healthy Itachi, okay, you know, like, he could definitely be able to probably, you know, give Pain a run for his money, you know, like, you know, strategize, you know, figure out what's the best way to kind of deal with them, whatever, yada, yada, you know, but overall, it's still going to be very, very intense and very hard. And the reason why is because you got to think about it. We all know Itachi's fucking a prodigy, and he's no fucking joke as a character. Trust me, I'm not sleeping on him. I'm the first one to say when Itachi wins. But Itachi's mainly specialized for 1v1 situations, not for fighting 6 fucking powerful ninja all at once. You know what I mean? And having to deal with every single one. You know what I mean? Like, so literally, like, Itachi's going to be having to combine Genjutsu use, Amaterasu, maybe even Tsukiyomi, whatever the case may be, yada yada. You know, he's going to have to do all this stuff, react, do it the best he can, okay, and not get one shot by any of the crazy abilities. Or, better yet, even waste any of his jutsus, okay, which is going to happen, especially with the counters that Pain can do. But, you know, Itachi has to deal with summons, Shinra Tensei, missiles, laser beams, explosions, you fucking name it. It's just gonna be too much for him. He's gonna fall. No matter what, he will fucking fall. Like, unless if Itachi has perfect fucking Susanoo, he's not winning that fight. It's just that simple. And even if he is granted Izanagi, cool, he gets a freebie, runs away, but either way, that's still technically a loss, okay? And overall, like, unless Itachi is able, which he more than likely would be able to, okay, it's very highly probable, you know, but unless Itachi is able to deduce that there's no point in this fight and it's meaningless and I need to find the real one, which would be Nagato, who is actually controlling them with chakra, unless he's able to deduce that and either use Izanagi to get escape, or if he can just escape somehow, some way, whatever, okay, and then find the original, you know what I mean, then yeah, sure, Itachi could probably pull it off. But that's very unlikely, more than likely won't really go that route. And not only that, I highly, highly fucking doubt Nagato would let Itachi be able to escape. It's very just, you know, is it possible? Sure. And if you were to try to argue that, sure, I'll give you that. But overall, it's really just not not in Itachi's favor. And I'm sorry. I love him, but it's just not. He's not built like that. Okay, now if we're talking about Edo Itachi, that's a whole other different thing. But I'm going to let the video play off, and like I said, I'll give my thoughts and etc. and we'll go forward.
These are perfect for a 1v1, but going against 6 people who can easily counter almost anything he throws at them will make this fight extremely difficult for him. I don't believe Itachi being sick or healthy would change much, other than maybe how many Amaterasus he can use and how long would the Susanoo last.
Now, as for healthy Itachi versus Nagato, he fares quite a bit better in this fight, right? It's a very similar fight, but he doesn't have the crazy drawbacks of being sick and losing his sight. Obviously, he doesn't have the EMS, so with prolonged usage of the Monkey Kick Sharingan, he will still lose his sight. But this is assuming that he wasn't already going blind going into this fight. Again, the Tsukiyomi may not be the best course of action here, but the main changes in the fight are that Itachi has a wider array of abilities that he can use closer together, and he might be able to abuse some of the aspects of the Mangekyo Sharingan, albeit briefly. In this case, he might be able to get rid of some of the summons with Amaterasu if he has chakra remaining, and if he has chakra remaining, he can attempt the Totsuka Blade. As I'm pretty sure you're all aware, this fight heavily relies on the fact if Itachi can land his abilities or not. As a result, you end up with Nagato winning the physical altercation aspects, but there's always a potential to get one shot. As a result, I'd give it to Nagato essentially 8 times out of 10. The main reason being that in the original Edo altercation, the main reason why Nagato got sealed away, although he got his personality suppressed, is that he was focusing on 3 different opponents, right? Itachi was debatably the least to worry about physically, and a 1-to-1 encounter would probably still go in Nagato's favor, as even if Itachi Susanoo probably wouldn't be much against, say, the Ghetto statue. And another thing to keep in mind as I'm closing off here is that Itachi was basically buffed as an Edo, which is kind of weird to say because, it's been pretty well established that Edos are actually nerfed, but in this case, Itachi was buffed because his base alive state was already so weak and frail that once he became an Edo, this was a huge nerf for him. He didn't have to worry about sickness, blindness, and he had unlimited chakra. Whereas in Nagato's case, you can still consider it a nerf because beforehand, while he was alive, although he was mainly crippled, he was using his attack potency through his paths of pain, right? Which even individually at their specific task would still be weaker than the original Nagato. So hypothetically, if we take a Nagato that didn't have to worry about the rods in his back and was physically able to be mobile, that Nagato would be stronger than the one that we saw during the Edo altercation versus Itachi's kind of vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, still healthy Itachi versus Nagato is going to go in Nagato's favor. I know a lot of Itachi fanboys don't want to hear that, but I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to.
So, and once again, like you said, he basically nailed it perfectly. Everything he literally just stated, absolutely true, absolutely correct. It's basically the best way to kind of word it, and put everything on the table. And like I said, could Itachi pull it off as healthy? Maybe, sure. I'm not going to be in denial about that. I feel like that'll be me being dishonest at that point. But it more than likely favors the Nagato of him taking it 8 out of 10 times, you know what I mean? With high difficulty or even mid. I wouldn't say low. I would definitely say mid or high. But overall, that'd basically be just that. But like I said, that's a good way to kind of approach it, a good way to kind of clarify and make, make your points. So yeah, absolutely, for sure. So let's move on to the next part.
To whether Itachi can land these or not, and more likely than not, if it's a 1-to-1 altercation, he probably won't be able to land most of these, you know what I mean?
Our main event is Edo versus Edo, and no, this fight didn't happen before. Itachi did not one-shot GG Nagato. People make it seem as if Itachi just walked into the battlefield like a Giga Chad and sealed him away. The series heavily implies that Rinnegan users become more powerful once they're used to it. Does Kabuto know more about the Rinnegan than freaking Nagato? The man was casually defeating KCM Naruto and Killer Bee at the same time while being controlled. Itachi couldn't even beat the same Naruto, and you can even argue that Naruto wasn't actually trying since he wanted to get answers from him. How would this fight go? Easy. Shibaku Tensei. Itachi's only way to survive this would be Izanagi. Nagato can probably drop another one. If not, Bunsho Tein. Then
One thing I will say, okay, yeah, Izanagi's a way to counter. And also, you could argue that if Itachi does Susanoo, that he could be able to tank the rocks, like pushing him in the gravity and all that. And you could argue that his Totsuka blade could counter Chibaku Tensei. It's arguable. It is possible. What would happen if that were to happen? I don't fucking know. But, you know, if we really analyze the data book statements and everything and etc. and the Totsuka blade itself, it's basically said to be able to seal and pierce anything it touches. Meaning to counter or beat anything it touches. So, I'm just saying, you know, so, but either way, that doesn't really make Itachi, therefore now he wins. That's not really a win con. That's just him being able to at least counter Chipaku Tensei. And who's to say that Nagato can't just spam it again? Or better yet, not only that, combining, you know, Shinra Tensei, you know, missiles, all the shit he has to deal with, you know, overall, it's just going to be fucking too much for him.
Soul Suck. Like I said before, Amaterasu can easily be countered by the Rinnegan's abilities, even if for one reason or another, Nagato decides to do eye contact. Tsukuyomi might not even work on him since his dojutsu is literally 2 levels above Itachi's. The only serious threat to him is the Susanoo, which is something he's more than capable of dealing with. And let's not forget the element of surprise, which would greatly help Nagato in all of these fights. Now, for all of you based Itachi worshippers, I think we can all agree that his Edo self can easily stomp most, if not all, previous Nagato forms.
Alright, so if you like more videos like this, definitely be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, definitely check out Greedy's channel and give.
Okay, so overall thoughts and impression and, you know, of the video itself, 10 out of 10 video, great job, incredible video, Anime World. So like I said, shout out to Anime World, make sure to check out his content and all his videos, he's a great guy. And also even Gritty, what's it called, apparently he makes Naruto content as well, and, you know, that's just basically that. And shit, I might even check him out, because I can even see a video there where it says campaign beat the 5 Kage, which, yes, in my opinion, I feel like he would be able to. A lot of people were like, huh? But yeah, he would be able to. What's it called? But yeah, so anyways, we're gonna get into it, you know, and go from there. So here's what I will say. So overall, if it's, we're gonna do Sekitachi first, okay? Sekitachi versus Passive Pains. Passive Pains takes it, okay? Sekitachi versus Nagato. What's it called? Nagato takes it. What's it called? If we do healthy Itachi versus Passive Pains, you know what I mean? Yeah, Itachi could probably give him a run for the money, whatever, yada yada, it'd be interesting. But overall, the result's going to be the same, and Itachi would more likely go down in the fight, or what's it called? He would just get, you know, other corpses. Passive Pains will pull up on Itachi again, and he dies. You know, or someone in the Akatsuki would just finish off Itachi when he's basically fatigued and drained, and that's it. The only way Itachi can really pull it off being healthy is if he's able to deduce that the real one's not here, there's no point in fighting this, and run away and get away, whether that's either Izanagi or if he can just get away, period. And if he finds the real body, then I don't really see how Nagato's going to be able to deal with that. He's kind of fucked. If it's healthy Itachi versus Nagato alive, what's it called? Then in my opinion, I feel like Itachi just definitely gets stomped. He doesn't have the Edo nerf, and he's very powerful himself with Shinra Tensei, Chibaka Tensei, you name it. And overall, he has a larger chakra reserves, etc. You know, and stamina. The more chakra you have, the more powerful you are, and faster, and all that. So overall, in my opinion, I feel like it's more likely going to favor in Nagato anyways. Would it be a cool and awesome fight? Yeah, sure. But Nagato most definitely more than likely takes it, and that's just that, and GG. And I feel like it'd just be too much pressure or too much for Itachi. And not only that, what's it called, in the endurance and the long haul of it, Nagato definitely takes it. And then most importantly, he can literally counter anything fucking Itachi throws at him. Now, what I will say, if Itachi lands a Totsuka, GG. If he does land a Tsukiyomi, GG. Now, actually, I'll take it back with the Tsukiyomi. So the Tsukiyomi, the problem is you could argue, just like they said, that it couldn't possibly not even work on Nagato since he has Madara's Rinnegan, which the Rinnegan is literally 2 levels higher than the Mangekyo Sharingan. Okay, Mangekyo, EMS, and then Rinnegan. So overall, meaning therefore, you could argue that it could just beat it, you know what I mean, and he just can't even get placed. Or if the way it works to where, you know what I mean, if he does get placed in the Tsukiyomi, yes, you could argue that Nagato would have the defense potency to break out of it due to having a stronger dojutsu. But remember, the way Tsukiyomi works is it doesn't allow you to be able to defend yourself or be able to break out because of time altering and perception in space and time itself. Meaning that if he does get put into it, that is also a GG then. If that makes sense for you at least. So overall, Nagato basically with all those versions, 8 out of 10 times. Could Itachi pull it? Maybe. Sure, I won't be in denial about that, but mainly more than likely Nagato. Like, for instance, like if I had to go into a debate about this, I would choose Nagato. So to me, that just makes more sense. Now, if we're talking about Edo Itachi versus the Paths of Pains, I feel like that one's actually really pretty interesting because now Itachi can basically spam all his abilities. He has basically unlimited chakra. And he basically has an EMS, but he doesn't. It's just he's just an MS. But like I said, there's no cons. There's no negatives of him, doing all of the stuff he could do. It's a meaning where he could basically go go all out, a lot of back and forth, etc. You name it, yada yada. But then at that point, I do feel like even if he was to beat the Paths of Pains, you know what I mean, with like his Susanoo and just kind of beat them all up or whatever, Tuska Blade them, sure. But that's not really dealing with Nagato, and Nagato could always just get them again and then, formulate even a better strategy, go from there, whatever. But one thing I will say is you could argue, that Shinra Tensei could also negate and destroy Itachi's Susanoo. And what I mean by that is this is where it gets interesting because the way Shinra Tensei works, from the databook statement, everything itself, it literally says the invincible hand of God, to where it consists of all 5 chakra natures and basically can negate and destroy anything it hits. Meaning, therefore, it doesn't matter what defense you have, it doesn't matter what chakra you have around you, none of that matters, okay? Overall, with the attack potency and the hacks ability, because that's what makes it so crazy, okay, you could argue that it could make the Susanoo disappear. Now, the only thing that is arguable for Itachi is if Itachi uses the Yada Mirror, to where he used that against Shinra Tensei, which that would be interesting because the Yada Mirror has a similar ability where it also consists of all chakra natures and basically formulates to any chakra nature combination or whatever to block any attack that hits it, to where basically it can block anything. Okay, meaning therefore, if they both kind of do the same exact function, would it just stalemate, or which one would be superior? Would it be, like the fucking shield with Mangekyo Sharingan, or would it be the Rinnegan with its ability? Like, it's a really weird and interesting question. So overall, basically what I'll say, if it hits the shield, it may be more likely to stalemate. It won't do anything. And you guys can go from there. Whatever you think would win, let me know down in the comments. Does Yada Mirror win, or does Shinra Tensei win? But if Pain is able to do a pull, along with doing, his combination attacks or whatever, or is able to land a Shinra Tensei on the side of his Susanoo, or at least anywhere else except where the shield is, it can most definitely go right through the Susanoo, and then it's going to hit Itachi, and then it's going to fuck him up and do some damage. So, who wins, basically? I feel like Edo Itachi could beat the Paths of Pains. If it really did come down to it, it is a lot more higher of a possibility. But would he win? Maybe not. You know what I mean? It's okay to say the Paths of Pains still win, whatever. But could he have a higher chance? Absolutely. But I still feel like the Paths of Pains would probably more than likely take it. And that's just me. Too much pressure, too much jutsu, etc. And if it's Edo Itachi versus a live Nagato, or even Edo Nagato, I still feel like Nagato would still take it. And that is due to the summons, the linked, the Rinnegan's linked vision, giving him even more ability, and having his blinding spots being protected. Also being able to see chakra, knowing when Itachi's going to do his attacks, whether if it's Tsukiyomi or Amaterasu or whatever. And then most importantly, even if Itachi gets serious and goes all out with Susanoo, okay, Nagato's not just going to sit there and take it in the ass, just like they said. He's going to move, he's going to react, he's going to do his abilities, and so on and so forth. And then you even have to argue with the question, can the Totsuka Blade beat Shibaku Tensei? And can the Totsuka Blade also beat Shinra Tensei? It's just it's really weird, you know what I mean? So, overall, it's really, really interesting. And at the end of the fucking day, Nagato still would have larger chakra reserves and more stamina. You know what I mean? And that'll basically just be that, and he would more likely win it. Now, if I had to say who wins between a live Nagato and Edo Itachi, maybe fucking Itachi. Maybe, you know what I mean? Especially if he uses Izanagi, you know what I mean? And Nagato's evil. But without Izanagi, and them just going at it, I feel like it's fair, at least in my opinion, fair to say that either one could take it. I'm not even going to choose at that point. I feel like either one. And the reason why is because since Nagato's alive, yeah, he's more stronger, whatnot, etc. But, You know what I mean? He does still have a limited amount of chakra pool and stamina reserve. So if Itachi is able to play the long haul game and you know and gas him out, basically he could win. But then you would also have to argue if Nagato would just be drastically more faster and more powerful in attack potency and etc. Because remember, the more chakra you have and the more chakra you use in your attacks and etc., the more powerful you're going to be itself. Meaning, therefore, overall, would Itachi just get speed blitzed, or would he just get fucking dominated by Shino Tensei or Shikpaku Tensei? Like, you see what I'm saying? So, regardless, I'll say either one can take it. If it's Edo versus Edo, what's it called? Then at that point, I'd probably say Nagato for sure would most definitely take it. Basically, you could just counter everything Itachi does, whatever. And then at the end of the day, even though they did say that technically Edos have like an infinite amount of chakra, one thing you guys need to put into consideration is it's not infinite. Basically, it's an unlimited regenerating amount of pull of chakra to where it's constantly regenerating. So it feels like it is practically infinite, but there is a limit, and that is also shown on the show. I'm not really going to get into that. So meaning overall, now they're just basically both feeling each other out, outlasting, yada yada, whatever, going back and forth. And Nagato would be able to win in the endurance, longevity of it in the battle, and meaning therefore Nagato would win. Or better yet, maybe it's just with all his abilities and pressure, etc., it would just be too much for Itachi. And if Itachi fucks up even once, he basically gets one-shotted. Like, he literally cannot afford to get hit. And that'll basically be just that. But overall, guys, the context of it, either one could basically take it at times, you know what I mean, and whatnot. But, like, it's way, way, way more stronger and more in favor of Nagato. Just so much more. That's all I'm basically saying with this. And it's just that fucking simple. You know what I mean? Now, the one thing I will say that I'm absolutely positively sure of, Itachi is not beating Nagato or fucking the Passive Pains. That's just not fucking happening. And if it's alive, unless, you know what I mean, if it's the Passive Pains, he's still not going to basically pull it out. Like I said, he can only win if he could find the real body. If he can't, he just loses. If it's, alive, healthy Itachi versus Nagato, unless he gets a Totsuka blade hit, he does not win. And if he gets a Tsukiyomi hit and can put him in it at least, then yes, that would be a W condition as well. But it is more unlikely or probable that Nagato won't get hit by those things, and he'd be just fine. So overall, that's basically it. So I feel like if those fights happened, definitely Itachi loses. Absolutely. Like, if it's sick Itachi, he just fucking loses, guys. It's so stupid, And if it's a live Itachi, yeah, he has more of a better chance, can spam a little bit more, whatever, yada yada, maybe even more faster and stronger and etc. But like overall, he's just, it's just gonna be too much. And if it's the Passive Pain, Tsukiyomi doesn't even fucking matter. You would have to prove and argue that it would affect the real user itself, and that's just not how that works. And it would just be a waste of use, it'd be a waste of vision, and that's in a waste of chakra and etc. So now, if it's Nagato there and he's not crippled and he's healthy or whatever, or even Edo, okay, then fucking, if he gets him in Tsukiyomi, if he can get him in it, then yes, he would win. But I just doubt it. You know what I mean? And then there's so many ways to argue back and forth that, that Nagato could just counter it and why and this and that. So, overall, that's just that. The only way Itachi is really a big deal is when he's really Edo. You know what I mean? If he's not Edo, or at least healthy, he's kind of fucked, So, but that's basically my thoughts, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Overall, sick Itachi loses to all versions of Nagato. Healthy Itachi has way of a better chance, but most definitely loses. And then Edo could more than likely, most definitely, probably be able to beat the Passive Pains. Whatnot. But either way, like whatever. And then but Nagato, that wouldn't happen. And that's basically where I'm at. And if I had to choose for Edo Itachi against the Passive Pains, I'd probably still even say the Passive Pains win it, and that's due to just them being able to counter everything. So, other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. That'll basically be it for this video. Make sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below of all versions, or what you think how everything will go, or your thoughts on basically what I've stated and said, and overall just the video itself. So, as always, see you guys in the next video. Peace out.